Martin Muses and another thing of mid-morning musings. Yes, precious, I am back. I am doing my best to get some content out here, but life is happening, and I'm doing the best that I can, but I'm always glad to visit with you. So welcome all of you that will be coming on the replay and that will be joining me in the chat. Well, what got me stop talking today, besides the fact that I woke up extra early with the sun in my face and the beach calling me? I did my reading of the Wheel of Time. Well, precious, it is the fact that they're doing another revival or something, a short run of Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical. Rock opera is probably a more accurate description. I believe that is how it is self-described, and it is starring Cynthia Erivo as Jesus, the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Now, am I really sitting around thinking this is the end of Western civilization? Is this really a surprise? Is any of this a surprise? And what would be a news flash would be is if they did a production or something with Jesus that was completely respectful of Christianity, respectful of the source material, etc., while maybe adding a few liberties. A good example of that would be The Passion of the Christ. All right. Frankly, that did make news, and I think the new Jesus movie will as well. TV show The Chosen, maybe I'll talk about that some other time. I've got some issues with that show. However, Jesus is mostly respected in that. I think that they do a very good job. I know that the actor does the best that he can with it. He's a good guy. But what's this about Jesus Christ Superstar? Well, first of all, the fact that they're doing something like this with Jesus Christ Superstar is not exactly the worst thing on the planet. Jesus Christ Superstar is not a rock opera. It is not the ground zero of orthodoxy. It is not. Most of it is questionable, to say the least. Now, Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice were not expecting or trying to do anything orthodox. It was done during a time where we started to see like the rise of the charismatic movement, popular evangelicalism, in my humble opinion, which had its climax with the megachurch movement. The idea of Jesus Christ Superstar, he was everywhere. I think that he was on the cover of Time magazine. It was, in many ways, a good revival because a lot of good things came from it, but also maybe the commercialization of Jesus. Though then again, is that really new? To make a long story short, though, they weren't necessarily coming at it from, oh my gosh, I've been saved, let's do this story. The way that Jesus is presented in Jesus Christ Superstar is, for lack of a better word, more of an Aryan point of view. That Jesus is not fully God. Jesus doesn't know what's going on. Obviously not scriptural or historical or anything like that. Jesus almost resents God in it. When Jesus does the institution of the Eucharist, that scene, the Last Supper, he doesn't even get the words of the institution right. He goes, "For all you care, this bread could be my body. For all you care, this wine could be my blood. Remember me when you eat and drink." That's just not even close to biblical, historical tradition with a capital T, any of that. So we're not talking about, again, something that they're defiling some great work of Christian art. It's not like they're taking a bunch of paint and splashing it on the Sistine Chapel. Oh, God forbid. Hey, look who is here. We love our animals here at Miss Martin Muses. It is Snortopupus Cooper. Yay, we love you here at Miss Martin Muses. How is it out on the iceberg? It's probably not in this sunny beach where I am right now. Hello. I never cared for Jesus Christ Superstar and the new one even less. Correct, yes. Now, yeah, so I'm talking about the characterization of what you see in Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm going to get to what's going on with Cynthia, Erivo, and all that in a second. And I'm going to talk about the value of the musical, the rock opera, Jesus Christ Superstar. So, not a good presentation of the Lord. The original version didn't even have the resurrection. Most productions nowadays show some form of resurrection at the end. The Garden of Gethsemane is ridiculous. See, it's a great song, but why should I die? Can you show me now that I will not have died in vain? Show me just a little of your omnipresent brain. Show me there's a reason for you wanting me to die. You're far too keen on how and where, but not so hot on why. That's absurd. Jesus always knew what was going on. So that's the kind of stuff people should really be mad about. Well, no, I am mad about. I don't like it. On the other hand, a great piece of music, a great song. Probably the best song in Jesus Christ Superstar, in my opinion, that kind of crosses over to the spiritual. I think that the Hosanna song, that is frankly pretty accurate. It's accurate scripturally. I mean, it takes quotes from the scripture. You know, the rocks and stones themselves will start to sing, and it's a very joyous piece. I think it's a great piece. The part with Caiaphas, tell the rabble to be quiet, we anticipate a riot. This common crowd is much too loud. Tell the mob that sing their song that they are fools, that they are wrong there, of course, they should disperse. And then Jesus responds with the rocks and stones will cry out and sing out, for you are blessed. There's not one of you who cannot share in the kingdom. The quick, the dead, all of that stuff. Now, it did show that Jesus, some humanity in the healing scene where he is stressing out. We know that Jesus did. We know that Jesus, the human part of him, would go out and pray and he would rest and he would want to, get away from things for a while. That's the human part of him, but the fact that he was resenting it, no. And of course, the most ridiculous thing, which apparently still keeps being repeated, is this idea that the Lord and Saint Mary Magdalene had something going on. Not scriptural, not historical, and in my opinion, very insulting to Saint Mary Magdalene. Saint Mary Magdalene was a woman, possibly unchaste. We're not entirely sure. There are some hints there. She had 7 demons. Jesus dispelled them. He did an exorcism, probably the easiest one ever, because he was Jesus. He was able to dispel the demons, obviously. And then she is next seen one time in the scriptures where she is at the foot of the cross, a very faithful woman that later history, tradition, maybe with a small t, correct me if I'm wrong, she ended up, I think, in southern France, but she definitely was a great woman of faith in her own right. But for some reason, people like idiots like Dan Brown and stuff try to say, oh, she was his wife. That's why she's special. No. Isn't that awful? That to me is actually very sexist. A woman only is important because of who she's married to. And second of all, it's ridiculous. This idea, oh, we've got to hide the fact that Jesus was married. No, we didn't. I promise you, if that was the case, just think about what the church has done from the very beginning. If the Lord had a wife, it's almost it's hard for me to say that because we know it didn't happen. We wouldn't have hidden it. They would have made an industry out of it. Shrines, all that. Look, the Blessed Mother. Look at how Saint Joseph. There would have been no reason to hide it. And this idea that, oh, they had to hide it because of celibacy. Remember, celibacy is a discipline in the church. It came later, and that there are many rites today in the Catholic Church that still practice marriage, like where a priest can be married. There are priests that are married in the Latin rite of the church. I know many married priests. It is not the norm. So there's no reason to hide it. It's not like, oh, the church is going to fall because of celibacy. That is a fantasy. Okay, Snortopoopa says, chiming in on St. Mary Magdalene, is such grist for revisionists, he says, even trying to use her to trace some Merovingian kings to Jesus Christ. Really? Some people say, someone once said, she's the first pope. That's what everyone's saying. I'm like, she's the first father. A lot of people don't know who the pope is. Yeah. And why? Why? Because people want to undermine Christ's church, though they should do better, to be honest. C.S. Lewis said something. He said, why do they just seem to go so much out of their way to go after Christianity, artists, and all of that? And you can't say, well, because it's part of Western civilization. I mean, come on. There's lots of things that are part of Western civilization. There's lots of things that are in great civilizations that are not derived from the West. That includes Christianity. Why? C.S. Lewis said, try to think of something really blasphemous about Thor. And you really can't. So maybe they're protesting too much. Protesting too much. I think that if we had had social media when a lot of this was happening, a lot of this ridiculousness, maybe we would have been able to out it a little bit, maybe it'd take care of it. But to make a very long story short, I am in no way threatened by Dan Brown. I am in no way threatened by Jesus Christ Superstar. I am in no way threatened by Cynthia Erivo or any of that. It's nothing. It's like a SWAT. It's a fly SWAT. There's no secrets to be kept. Diga Outlaw says, good morning. Why good morning? Hi, Commander. Yeah, we're not afraid of anything. We're not afraid of the truth. Because truth will always out itself anyways. All right. So this whole idea of St. Mary Magdalene, well, we've talked about it. Maybe I'll Catholic explain it one day. But remember, she was a great saint, a saint in her own right. People that don't know the Bible, and I'm not necessarily knocking anyone, but a lot of people mistake St. Mary Magdalene with St. Mary of, dagnabbit, just went out of my head. Yeah, she's St. Mary Magdalene because she was of Magdala, the sister of Lazarus. Where did they go for Lazarus? Wherever Lazarus lived, that's the St. Mary we're thinking of. My gosh. Capernaum? No. Okay. Everybody Google. I just had it in my head and it just went out of my head. But yes, she was a sister of Lazarus. Bethany. Mary of Bethany. My gosh. There's lots of Marys in the New Testament. And the reason is because Miriam was the sister of Moses. She had probably the coolest song ever after the Red Sea thing. So a lot of women were named after Miriam, the sister of Moses. A lot of women were. And now, of course, we're all named after Mary because they were all saints and they were all Mary. Mary of Bethany. She was the one who anointed Jesus's head and wiped the tears from her feet. Let's see. Hound is here. Hello, Hound 3000. He's woof woofing. Thank you for being here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Might as well watch Heston's Been Her. Well, yeah. Snortopoopas Gruber said, Dan Brown based most of his fiction on a book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah. And he claimed, oh, this is based on real things. And unfortunately, I mean, I still today have to deal with this nonsense. Oh, isn't this what happened? Isn't this what Opus Dei is? No, it's not what Opus Dei is. Oh my gosh. Now, back in the past, back in the 90s and when all this stuff was happening, and there was a reason. Now we're all seeing it. We all know the pattern. We all know that everyone was working together to subvert Western civilization, subvert our legends, our lore. Now, obviously, I believe, like C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, I think J.R. Tolkien was the one who told this to C.S. Lewis, that Christianity is the true myth. They're all myths, but this is one that happens to be true. And that's why you will see similarities all throughout the world. And again, because truth is truth. And if people didn't have the internet until, 1996, that was when it went thing. So obviously, you're going to have different manifestations of the truth throughout. So When people are misrepresenting Catholicism, they're misrepresenting myth. It'd be like trying to say Thor. Thor was really a woman or something ridiculous like that. Okay, and but it's the true myth. That's a whole other discussion for another day. And remember, myth does not necessarily mean a bad thing. Myth is actually a good thing. So this is lore. And you know how we always say, I'm stealing this from Steve Kenobi. He's asleep, so I can do this. But I always credit him. He came up with this when it comes to like Catholicism. We always say the original lore for Star Wars, the original lore for Tolkien. You have to be accurate to the original lore. So when you're looking at Catholicism, Christianity, you have to be true to the original lore. So if you want to think about it in a secular way, there's not being true to the original lore. In a religious way, yeah, it's also not true. Thor was Thor says Nerd Poop is Cooper. Rachel Percy Art says, my high school teacher made the Da Vinci Code required reading, fully buying that Dan Brown was writing the truth. I have never read a more pretentious novel in life. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, but think about it, it's just so silly. Oh, they were trying to hide something about Mary Magdalene. Oh, what were they afraid of? Well, we're actually afraid of absolutely nothing. And there goes my microphone. Just because your fantasy is not true. And what got me, because this is something that really bothered me. I didn't realize this until I went to college and happened to run across the right people, the right sources, that so much of what was being presented to me in school was just simply not true. Whether it was history, whether it was theology, whether it was any of that. It just simply not true. And it surprised me that when I majored in history, and I was majoring in history and doing medieval studies, the professors and everyone were like, well, of course, this is what things were. Like, for example, things like myths about the crusade that are in popular culture have not been in history for ages because we have sources. Things about the Inquisition, same thing, Spanish Inquisition. But popular culture is behind scholarship, frankly, because they don't want to know the truth. And we're learning this. Nordporeal life form is here. Do you think you're what you say you are? Yes. Jesus Christ, superstar. Yes. Now, some of that was from Judas's point of view. So that makes sense. The Jesus Christ superstar thing. Obviously, Judas had issues, which is why he did what he did and ended the way that he did. Frankly, I don't have too much of a problem with Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar because he was a doubter. And it led to where he led, including blaming God for it all. It's like, no, dude, you did it yourself. It was Jesus and St. Mary Magdalene where they really messed up. Who are you? What have you sacrificed? Miss Muse's superstar. Oh, dear. Rachel Perciart said, let's be real, the church would never have hidden the sacred bloodline of Christ if that was a thing. They would have used that to their advantage. Yes, precisely. There would have, as I said, there would have been shrines. There would have been fake relics. All of that stuff. All of those scandals that happened. We wouldn't have hidden it. We would have monetized it. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing to hide. It would have been like, woohoo, look at us. Right? The Da Vinci Code is still good fictional story. People tend to forget that it is fictional. Well, yeah, that's part of the problem but Dan Brown presented it as it was true. He even said so in his preface. People were accepting as true. And sadly, like I said, people believe it. I still run across that. Well, how can you be a Catholic when this? I'm like, well, it's not true. And as we all know, there's certain religion they will never do that with. Rachel Perciart says, well, Hound, when you start your novel with 10 things you must accept as truth. Yeah, Rachel, you're doing my job for me. You're going to get that from your audience. The real problem is other sources taking that and running with it. Yes, and the fact is that there's not a lot of critical thinking, and there is a natural anti-Catholic bias in popular culture. There's a really good book called The Last Acceptable Prejudice, which highlights this. Nordporeal Life Form says Judas was black and wore bell-bottom pants and platform shoes. Yes, orange ones. Oh gosh, yes. Well, speaking of which, yeah, in the movie, in the original productions, the fact that Judas was black and Jesus was white, that's problematic in of itself. Now it doesn't matter, and frankly, race is not an issue because we've always been race swapping Jesus. We all know what Jesus looked like, but you'll find in West, he'll be portrayed as a white man. You'll find in the East, especially like Asia, he's like a samurai. He's Asian, he's Vietnamese, he's Hispanic. We've always been race swapping Jesus, and that's okay because people want to portray him in an image that they're comfortable with. That's the ultimate. I want to see myself in something, so it's just perfectly natural to do that. What is not natural, and that's what we're going to talk about with Cynthia Erivo in a second. Snortopupus Kuber says, my medieval history professor called Holy Grail a wonderful example of false history constructed on a foundation of sand. I called it the grand unification theory of all conspiracies. Precisely. Absolutely. Precisely, absolutely everything. And we all know what happens when you build your house on sand. And the rain came down and the flood came up. If you know the Sunday school song. Same with films, especially that Cleopatra stuff. Mm-hmm. Yep. You mean Cleopatra? Oh, dear. Yeah, they're talking about. Well, it's especially egregious when you're dealing with historical figures. When you're looking at history. I just got done saying why it was okay to do it with Jesus. And, we've done it with the saints, the Blessed Mother. Look at Our Lady of Guadalupe. I can promise you, Mary, the mother of Jesus, the mother of God, was not from Mexico or what it became Mexico. I promise you. But it's perfectly acceptable to do so. When you're dealing with religion and symbols, it's a different ballgame. So why is this an issue with Cynthia Erivo? Let's just lay it out here. It's not because of her race, obviously. We've just got done talking about that. Jesus is often portrayed by black people, black men, and all of that, especially on stage, right? This is what's a little bit different about Cynthia Erivo. First of all, it's not your normal theater situation where they do all sorts of weird stuff. This is a superstar from Wicked doing something over in the Hollywood Bowl. So this is a large profile situation. Number 2, they know exactly what they're doing. And so does Cynthia Erivo. It is a humiliation ritual. And that's what they've been doing. That's what they've been doing, Dan Brown and all of them. They've been taking the sacred and plastering it into our popular culture and into our educational systems and trampling on what is holy and making us see it and tricking us into it. A good example is what they did at the Olympics. The last thing anyone expected was to see the Last Supper with inverted symbols and a mockery of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Now, they will say till the cows come home, no, they were using a different painting. No, they weren't. Artists know art. They did it exactly. Queen Charlotte, anyone, oh, goodness gracious, that's ridiculous, yes. Well, and the fact that they keep making women, like, Anne Boleyn, they made her black, and I'm like, are you sure? You guys are as progressive as you think you are with these things? Because one of the concerns back in the day when things were more truly ist, they would always have the crook, the criminal, and all that be someone that was black. And now they're doing it again. Whenever they race swap, they're always making the villain black. So many of my cherished fantasies are being mocked, said Smurpoopus Kubur. Well, Cleopatra was born in Egypt, so she's African, just Elon Musk. Well, technically, yes. Was Charlotte Black like Anne Boleyn? Yes, according to Netflix, yes. Well, and part of the problem with the Netflix one was that was actually a documentary. So if you're doing a documentary, especially, you need to do so. But again, I always ask them, why are they always making the bad people that? That's my question. The fact that if rumors are true, they're making Snape race swapped. And it's like, I'm not so sure you're sending the message you think you are. Now, it's a humiliation ritual. Cynthia Erivo is a superstar. She is also very clear about her sexuality. She knows what she is doing. The people making it know what they are doing. So should I even be bringing attention to this? This has been an argument sometimes. It's like, well, ignore them. Don't give people the attention they ordered. Well, in this case, I think it's okay. It's not like when people put things out on Twitter. X. I mean, X right now is worthless. And responding to people is worthless on X because they just put things out that they know will make you mad so that you will respond. They know it's not true. They can Google as much as anyone else. See my video on it. But it is on purpose. Now, why is it a problem having Jesus being played by a woman? First of all, it's not historical. And gender matters. You see, part of the thing is that gender doesn't matter. If gender doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. But to make Jesus a woman is to completely negate the incarnation of Christ. Now, I'm talking about if Jesus is a woman. Now, obviously, this is just some stupid artists doing stupid things, but this is why I'm saying they know what they're doing. That's why women can't be priests. Priests are in persona Christi. That for whatever reason, God became a man. He was a man. He's a man historically, and the fact that he was a man means something. And if you want to know what's kind of messed up, I'm trying not to bash any particular denomination. I'm careful about that because I feel like I've given up the right to do so once I left them. But look where they have women priests. And look what happens. What's happened to them. What's happened to their clergy, okay? Because it's hard to say. It goes all the way to the sacrament of matrimony. Like Christ marries the church, the bride of Christ. The priest is the groom. We are the bride. All of that kind of stuff. So that's why gender swapping Jesus matters. Also, again, as I said, it's not historical. What do they say here? The logic behind Anne Boleyn was, Rachel Percyart says, we've seen her history enough. And I'm like, why don't you write an original story then? Oh, wait, you can't. Yeah. Or do something we haven't seen too much of. How about Queen Matilda? I'm surprised someone hasn't done it right now, or Empress Matilda, sometimes she's called. Especially since House of the Dragon is basically based on that. I wonder if woke DEI will make a historical figure like Genghis Khan a black guy or a woman. Yeah. Again, I feel like making people a woman and gender swapping is worse than race swapping. But if it's a historical figure, you need to present people as they are. I'm currently reading, says Emporia Life from Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. He references the Gnostics. Yes, very Gnostic what they're doing. Yeah, a lot of heresies. Nothing new under the sun. That's the other thing. It's not like we haven't seen this before. I always thought that Natalie Dormer was Anne Boleyn. Is nothing in my mind sacred? Yes. At an Arcadio Ego. We saw one of those in action a couple of weeks ago in the National Cathedral. Oh, yeah, precisely. That's why we have now the Anglican use mass in the Latin rite right now, that Pope John Paul originally gave the permission and was made through a motu proprio. So if you are an ex-Anglican, or if you like the Anglican liturgy, you can do that in the Latin rite of the Catholic Church. Just find one. It's really beautiful. Rachel Percyart said, exactly. There is a meaning behind traditions, and those traditions are valid and shouldn't be changed just to make certain groups feel better. Exactly. Well, we've been taught. Anthropology is another one of my certifications that I received postgraduate. We have been taught that you have to be authentic to the culture. Like, you have to be sensitive to the cultures. And that's a good thing. Like, in the past, we have not been. And sadly, this ultra psycho kind of things going on right now have harmed that, because sometimes people, when there's genuineism, it's very hard to get people to take you seriously now. It's like the boy that cried wolf. But yes, you need to be authentic to the culture. We got to be authentic to the culture unless it's Christianity. Nerd Poil Life Form says, speaking of Aaron Boylan, I first learned her from Anne of a Thousand Days with Richard Burton. That was a good movie as well. Have you seen A Man for All Seasons, Nordporeal Life Form? That, if you really want to understand the English Reformation, that's one to get. The Nordporeal Life Form, Ed and Cardio Ego have been reading the Holy Blood, Holy Grail lately. Archer Collin! Hello, Archer Collin. We have a man from the future here. Hey, Teresa, sorry I missed the start of the stream. We all know why the casting decision regarding Jesus was made. Precisely. And that's why I'm saying it's a humiliation ritual. Hello. Norpoil says the main villain that is inscribed on his rifle. I looked up the meaning. Okay. Even in Arcadia, death comes. Thank you. You see, I can't translate Latin unless it's something that I've memorized. The liturgy, songs, and prayers. Arcadia, Florida is about 100 miles from me. Ooh. Hey, I'm near you, man. I'm right now at the beach. I remember some time ago, says Hound 3000, there was a theater play that made Joan of Arc into a non-binary because she wore male clothes and male armor. Yeah. Once again, you got to get those Catholic saints. Remember how we venerate the saints. We Julia with the saints, yes. And Hero. She was a great French hero. Why do you think she wore male clothes and male armor? Because she was fighting. It wasn't because she was trying to gender swap. She cut her hair. Hey, I'd cut my hair if I were going into battle. I've got long hair. You don't want your hair flying everywhere. That's a discussion for another day. So we've got why gender swapping Jesus is an issue. Duh, but now add to it that Jesus Christ Superstar has that ridiculousness about St. Mary Magdalene having a thing for Jesus. Now, what territory are we in? I don't know how to love her. Yeah. Are they going to gender swap St. Mary Magdalene, which completely is awful? Yeah. Take away a woman who has dignity and is great, is a saint, revered very highly. I mean, because she was one of the three that named ones that stood by Jesus at the cross. St. John was the other one, and Mary, the mother of God, was the other one. And make her into a man. Just a second, I need to mute because my mom's probably going to knock and talk. Okay, Joan of Arc or that bloody French peasant girl. Yeah, because in real life, boob armor is a missile trap. Yeah. Yes. So, now you've got Saint Mary Magdalene humiliated. Goodness knows what they're gonna do with Saint Peter, what they're gonna do with Saint John, and I don't know, what are they gonna do with Judas? I don't know. But we know why they're doing it. And again, this is why it's different than your typical theater situation because they got Cynthia Erivo superstar. She is a superstar. I hate to admit it. She was magnificent in Wicked. She was amazing and she was beautiful. You know how they had to make her beautiful in Wicked? They had to take out all her piercings and put a wig on her, and I was very surprised. I was expecting to hate her, but she was great as Elphaba, and that is just a shame because I don't think that she has presented herself very well. I put her in the category of people like Pedro Pascal, people like Mark Hamill, that generally have a hatred and a resentment toward the normal people. And so they want to humiliate us. If we were dealing with tolerance, like tolerance used to be when I was growing up, is the idea, hey, tolerance is a two-way street. Live and let live. Understand, I was a girl of the 80s and the 90s, and that included things to do with sexuality, that included things with race. Live and let live. But it has to be a two-way street. It's like, yes, we will be tolerant. We will live and let live. And instead of the other side going, okay, that sounds awesome. And then we'll all be living, that harmony that John Lennon talks about. Instead, they were like, thank you for being tolerant toward us. Now we're going to unleash the hounds of hell on you and trample you and destroy you and laugh all the while we're doing it. And then they wonder why there's resentment. Then they wonder why we're dealing with what we're dealing with right now. Maybe wondering why we don't care that they're crying. Oh, dear. Yeah. Oh, I've already said that. Okay, let's see. They're talking about Saint Joan of Arc. Correct. I won't say it aloud, but that was also an issue with Saint Joan of Arc, absolutely. And that's part of the reason why, even today, it's questionable to allow women in certain areas of the military and the like. I don't want to denigrate or push down anyone who wants to serve their country. But man, there's a reason why women, in my humble opinion, need to be in traditional roles for that. Women have been suffering. I would argue I'm one of them, though not suffering horrendously. I'm not suffering the way other women have suffered. But by taking away this position of women, what makes feminine, feminine, femininity, femininity, true feminism from women, the only people that have been harmed have been women. One could argue men have benefited from it. Obviously, not all men, but I'm saying, has it really benefited women? Who has suffered from it? Now, there were genuine issues in the past that needed to be overcome, such as things to do with rape, things to do with marital rape, things to do with women being abused, things to do with women not being allowed to be financially independent. Those things, yes, needed to change. But other things, they went too far. They tried to make us into men. Women are beautiful and great because we are beautiful and great, not how we compare to men, not how masculine we are. And again, I would argue that's a very sexist attitude, that a woman is only great if she's like a man. And that's the other problem with this whole gender swapping and trying to make Jesus into a woman. Isn't it interesting? This is a thing within the church, the Catholic Church, that all the ones that wanna have women priests that wanna abortion, all of those things, all the dissenters, they don't venerate, they don't celebrate the female saints, Mary, Mother of God, Saint Therese of Lisieux, the Rosary. Some might. Obviously, I'm generalizing. Yeah, genuine femininity. Archer Collins says, I may be a bit cynical here, but I wonder if there is any other saint that took 600 odd years to be canonized. Well, yes, there is. Yes, it takes quite a while. St. Thomas More and St. John Fisher, they were canonized in the 1930s for very specific reasons. The Holy Father mentioned, when I say very specific, he mentioned some of their qualities that just so happened to be inspirational against a certain movement that was growing in the 1930s. But yes, it took them a long time. I think it also took a long time because they didn't want to have retaliation against the English and the Irish Catholics. Remember Catholic Emancipation, 1830, and there were some imprudent things that popes did in the 16th century. And the only people that suffered were, again, the people, the English Catholics. So that was part of the reason as well. But yes, those are the two that immediately come to mind. Sort of Poopy Scrubber says, it's one thing to have shaped bit of armor covering the bosom and another having the Hollywood-style D-cups with huge trap on sternum thrack. Yeah, you are talking about Guy Ladriel. Yes. And not to speak too much of a saint's body, but girl was what, 15? Correct me if I'm wrong. Do the math. Archer Collins says, I would say that feminism has affected men, but mainly through the way it makes women worse off, if that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, because men don't know what to do. And with some of this Me Too stuff, I know more than one man that's like, it ain't worth it. I'll stay single. I don't want to get falsely accused. Yes, it has hurt men. It's hurt men, it's hurt women, and it's made us lonely. It makes me so mad when people say, oh, this person's single because she made bad choices. You know, just these people that go and get married. It's like, well, first of all, not to knock marriage, but 50% divorce. But second of all, I would say, okay, what's the bad choice that I made? Tell me. Well, you made a bad choice because you're single. Okay, which is a bad choice? These are people coming from that I'm a Christian, that I didn't have a baby out of wedlock, not knocking anyone that did, that I went and worked and supported myself and served the poor and did charity, wrote a best-selling essay that's still in print part of an anthology, that I taught children. I had thousands of children of my own, if you will, by being a teacher. Okay, what's my bad decision? It's really weird that way. That this is coming from, I think, the trads. It's like, I didn't make any bad decisions. I made all the right decisions. And the same thing with men as well. Doing the right thing is not rewarded anymore. I would like for that to be changed. Oh, you're just a single woman with just a cat. Well, what am I supposed to do? I like cats. I used to have 2. I lost 1 after 20 years. Nothing wrong with that. And those are often the same people that'll sit and say, oh, well, you shouldn't have a baby out of wedlock. It's like, okay, so I'm to be made fun of because I have a cat. But I don't know. I think they're all hacks, and I feel sorry for people that actually listen to them. I listened to them for a bit, and then I was like, wait a second, screw you. Especially since we've learned that some of these people, some of these influencers are not even real. Who is that one? I don't even know who she is. And then we also know that a lot of people just say that just to piss people off. Rachel Percyart said, I would love someone to tell me what my bad choice was. I wanted to get married, but it just never happened or hasn't happened yet. Exactly. Yeah, my bad choice. My bad choice. You've seen it too then, haven't you? You know what's a bad choice? Getting married for the sake of being married and being unhappy and getting divorced because you're unhappy. Or getting married to a bad man or bad woman for that matter. Understand I'm a woman. That's a who hurts you or cheats on you. Getting married to the wrong person is a miserable situation. Marriage is a part of discernment. I think people are also forgetting that. Okay, understand. The people that say that crap are the people that happened to meet their mates in their 20s. Congratulations, you did. You got married and you had children young. Congratulations. And they can't get out of their head that that's the way it is for everybody. It's not. And you have to be discerning in who you marry. Marriage is different from dating, okay? Marriage is a sacrament. I mean, how many people will say, go get baptized, but don't think about it too hard? Or go be a priest, but don't prepare for it. Don't discern. Of course you will. Of course you will. Also, we have a great tradition in the church of singleness being praised. It's in the Bible. St. Paul talks about it. He even says he wishes everyone could be like him and talks about virgins and widows. Those are good things. Some of the greatest women in history have never married, and look what they've done. Okay, because it frees you up to do good. It's not a curse. It's not a sin. Again, I think these people, though, are trolls or they need to get their heads out of their butts. One thing that I like to tell people when they do that, this has happened in real life. Oh, well, then you must know somebody. Can you find one and set me up? Find me a nice, stable man, decent income, who's a good guy and wants to go out and have some coffee. And the dude came back and said, you know what? You're right. I don't know one single man like that. Said, I know a lot of single men, but I don't want to introduce you to them. It's not that easy. How about quit judging and just live your own life? Life is a result of our decisions, says Archer Collin. Right or wrong does not necessarily come into it. Life's like that. That's true. Yes. And I'm just talking about the people that say you did the wrong thing. You made bad decisions. Yeah. Life happens. And even if you made bad decisions, okay, who hasn't made a bad decision? Who hasn't? I would sure like to know. Because it must be amazing to be perfect. We've all made bad decisions. I just think that when people say, well, you made bad decisions, it's like, yeah, I just shouldn't have fed the poor. I shouldn't have, you know, done everything responsibly. I should have just gone into debt, married a bad person, or married the first person that asked me. I should have, had IVF, all this stuff. Yeah, I'm proud to be a cat lady. Because I was not going to be a single mother. Not to knock single mothers, but I was not going to choose to be a single mother. Try being a polar bear, says Snortopoopas. I have yet to meet any human woman who wants to marry a polar bear. That is correct. Well, I do not endorse furries here at Miss Martin Muses. We do not endorse for furries on Miss Martin Muses. I'm going to go ahead and put this up. I think it's turn into a bit of an open discussion here about what would you like to muse, but always realize that I can do a veto. There might be a bear in that cave. I'm a dog. Yeah, I feel badly for you animals. Well, I'm a rose. Try to find a husband when you're a rose. Yeah. Archicon says, to be fair and hopefully not controversial, I understand that many of the earlier followers of Christ expected him to return pretty much within their lifetime. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But it still stands. Even if Jesus is going to return, I mean, you can't get married because he also says those that should get married should. Jesus said those that can accept it should. I may be furry, says Snortopupus Gruber, but I'm not a furry. Yes, mea maxima culpa. Part 2, says Archer Collins. So therefore, long-term planning, such as having families, not in their thought process. For some, I agree. But again, that negates then all the other things said in the Bible. But I get it. If you think you're going to die, yeah, maybe marriage isn't a good thing. However, if you believe that the Bible is inspired by the Holy Spirit, there was a reason why everything was said. But I also just throwing it out there that if people want to sit around and bash single people, well, you're bashing St. Paul. If I'm saying Christians that try to do that, it's not biblical. Vance learned his lesson. He did a very good mea culpa. I suspect he talked to someone. I have seen him with Scott Hahn a few times in pictures. I bet you Scott called him up and said, "Hey, pal, I know you're a convert, so let me explain this to you about single people and people that don't have children." And he did a very good mea culpa, so I forgave him. And some of us are still waiting. Yes, aren't we waiting? Some people want Jesus to come pretty soon. But I always get that out of my system in Advent. That's why I love the church and the liturgy, the liturgical calendar. We think about the second coming during Advent. We get ready for it. We prepare. Again, getting it out of our system. Then we have Christmas. Woo! Now we're getting ready for Lent. I'm ready for what I need to purify myself from, and we're going to walk with the passion of Christ. Rachel Perciart says, that is the advice I hear most. Just get pregnant and be a single mother. Nope. I was raised by a single mother and it's terrible for her. Yes. Yeah. It's hard being a single mother. Not to denigrate single mothers, but I don't know a single mother on the planet that says, woo, yeah, that was the way to go. You're doing the job of two people. Money is an issue. It's not difficult. Or worse. Okay, let's just say I took advice and said, okay, I'll marry this guy, even though I don't really feel like it. Is that fair to the man? Is that fair to him? I don't think so. He deserves to have his soulmate. The thing is that there's judgmentalism on this stuff. And it seems like it's coming from the red pill crowd who maybe they're all fake anyways. We know that everything on X is fake. Everything on X is fake right now because it gets traction. So just be careful and, don't take it to heart. To be fair, says Archer Collin, I am looking from that from an academic rather than a religious perspective without meaning to offend those who do believe. Oh, no, I completely get it. And that's cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they thought that way, yeah. But on the other hand, like we said, they were also saying, hey, you want to get married? Get married. It is better to marry than to burn. Burning. I need to be careful. I am not going to blaspheme. That is not on my bingo card. Speaking of blaspheming, oh my goodness. This isn't blasphemy, but my goodness, I'm having trouble right now a little bit. Well, the Pope may be in his last days, and I'm praying for him. But man, it's been a rough papacy. It really has been. Now, if we do end up having that and having a conclave, I will be covering all of it because that is my territory. So, yeah, that's the reason why Cynthia Erivo and all this stuff is wrong. Remember, they don't like us. They want to humiliate us. But man, the music on Jesus Christ Superstar is amazing. Well, that's the other thing. That's a problem with gender swapping a piece. Those songs that Jesus sings in the musical, the rock opera, are made for a male voice. And some of the notes, some of what you see with what is accomplished vocally is not as impressive with a female voice, even if they change the key. It was written for a man. We've seen this the other way. I've seen some men singing Defying Gravity. It's not a hard song for a man to sing, but boy, is it for a woman. It's very impressive. And she does a great job with it. She knows what she's doing. Yeah, Jesus Christ Superstar, there's several reasons why it's great music. I was saying it outlines to try to use a lot of perfect fifths. So me do. So me, let's see. So me do, la fa do. A first inversion of a subdominant chord. Da-da-da. Yeah, great stuff. Andrew Weber knows how to write a great tune. Adiga Outlaws chiming in. There's a lot to unpack here. Darn right. First, making the role as a woman assaults the reality of Father and Father God. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are male. They're called male. Second, the genealogical issue is destroyed. Oh, good point. Another point, there's an attempt to insult the tolerance of religious and push them from peaceful to the aggressive and angry. That's a good point. They are provoking us. That's why I said that what happened on Epiphany 2021, it was like you fell into the trap. We learned our lesson, though. Yes, they're trying to provoke us into doing something. And then they'll say, oh, look, they're so intolerant. Psychos. Darn right. Very good point, Adega Outlaw. There is also, says Adega Outlaw, the push through humiliation to destroy hope. Yep, there we go. That's what I'm talking about, the humiliation ritual. It is a multi-pronged attack with only one change. That is well said, Adega Outlaw. Well said. Well put into 3 sentences. Carlin, yeah, they wouldn't dare turn to certain other male religious character female. No, they would not. And part of that is, sadly, what makes Christianity great, in my humble opinion, is that we do heroic virtue. We don't get revenge. We don't respond in kind. Others are not so generous. Yeah, we all know why they wouldn't dare. Archer Collins says, I have to admit, from a purely logical point of view, as a unique entity, God should be neither male nor female. Well, yes. And that's why you have in other religions goddesses and priestesses and all that. The thing about with Christianity is that that is how God chose to reveal himself. The Trinitarian self is male. Yeah, obviously, the Holy Spirit does not have a body. And when I say male, I'm not talking about genitalia and all that stuff, okay? It is that is how he chose to reveal himself. And, he says, I will marry you. He said that to the Jews, and the church is his bride. It's a sacred thing about marriage. And remember, at the end of time, it's going to be the marriage feast of the Lamb. Frankly, that's what we do in Mass. That's why the priest says, blessed are those who are called to the supper of the Lamb. So we do have gendered language in there because there is something sacred and something mysterious about it all. Snortapoopa says, I always have this argument with some people. Historically, in most cultures, female warriors were the exception, not the rule. Darn right. For several reasons. Well, actually, for one. Most of the time, you put a woman against a man, the man's going to win. There's also anthropological reasons. Most women who did know how to fight, it was the way that Eowyn described it in The Lord of the Rings, that women learned that, even if, paraphrasing, maybe you couldn't wield a sword, but you could still die on one. So it would be for self-defense. That's the same thing about the whole shield maiden thing. Maybe one day I'll bring on Steve because he really knows Norse stuff. I don't know why. Maybe it's part of his culture. And he can talk about what a shield maiden was. Bird Poopy says something about not having your primary breeders wiped out in one fell swoop. Well, yeah, that's another thing. It is biology. And I know that nowadays we can artificially do it, but at what cost? At what cost? Just Google it. Google what has to happen for one of these artificial ways of getting pregnant. How many die? Man, I'm so gonna get demonetized for this one, but, it's okay. It's alright. Life is sacred, but no one has a right to a baby. Not at that cost. I think it is criminal, though, that it is so difficult to adopt. When people say, "Look at all these children," man, is it difficult to adopt here in the United States. And even then, there are so many situations where the birth parents can change their mind, they can lose their kid. In America, we need reform. Get on it, Elon. Yep. Well, we are at the 1 hour. Wow, you all have given us a lot to muse on. Thank you for all of your comments. Yeah, and I like, Archer, the fact that you're looking at it from maybe more of an anthropological point of view or a historical point of view rather than a religious point of view. And I have studied both. It's hard not to have them intermingle. But that's why I'm not afraid of historical facts about the church. I think that we have had a learning moment with this current papacy because we haven't really had a bad pope or a pope that's not good at poping for a very long time. So it's been a great learning experience, I think, for a lot of people to realize about the nature of the papacy and being the successor of Saint Peter in the versus the man. And anyone that thinks that people that are Catholic or become Catholic are doing it because they don't want to face reality or they want their lives to be easy or they want to live in a fantasy world haven't even tried to look at it. It is not easy. It is trust it would be so easy to just turn your back on it all. But on the other hand, it is so peaceful. It is so rewarding. It is so grace-filled. And I wouldn't change a darn thing. So beautiful. Archer Collins says, Miss Martin music maybe just be the historical lesson I've listened to over the years. Yeah. Well, and do understand when I was studying to history, I had to completely look at it all from a secular point. Darn it. I may have been saying something really profound, but my microphone went out. You see, that's what happens when I start waxing poetic. What I was saying was, if you didn't hear me, the fact that I had to look at it from a secular point of view, from a historical point of view, and I think that was good for people, that you have to be able to understand things. Because if I'd have tried to be all religious in my historical papers or in my studies, it wouldn't have flown. Loretta is keeping a baby in a box. Oh, wait. Where did I lose that? Oh, there he is. You haven't got a womb. Where's the fetus going to gestate? You're going to keep. Yes, exactly. Well, who was it? George Alexopoulos. did a very good cartoon about that. Human anatomy is so confusing. Mike, yep, that was me. I was gesturing and knocked my mic out. I dropped off right after the secular point. I hate my life. Betty Hepburn, hello, thank you for being here. Yes. So I was just saying that, yeah, secular. Now, when I'm writing for religious publishers, yeah, you go all religious. But yes, you have to be able to look at it from both point of view. Science the same way. For some reason, says Archer Collin, I've been thinking about forced conversions recently. Yes, not okay. What happens when you turn up at the pearly gates and St. Peter, whoever says, but you don't really believe? Well, I think you're coming at it from a bit of a sola fideism point of view. A forced conversion is a forced conversion. It is a violation of a person's conscience. Yes, we know it happened in the past and it was wrong. It was wrong even then. But you have humans in the church. God honors the conscience. Gosh, watch a Man for All Seasons, or I'm sure you probably have, or read the writings, even better. But the Man for All Seasons does a good job with the writings, word for word, about what the conscience, how important the conscience is, and how it cannot be violated. And that goes with my God is not a jerk theory. God will no. I was afraid the Unturb monster nabbed you. Yeah, unfortunately, that would be bad. Gosh darn it, I was making such a good point. I'm so proud of myself. He said, there's pride. I guess that was Jesus humbling me. So, says Archer Collins, so you answer, well, I was scared for my life. If I didn't, where does that leave you? Or the person threaten you into fake and sincere belief? Well, that's what I'm saying is I think I already answered that. Yeah, that if that's the situation, God knows your heart and all of that. And who is ultimately finally saved is a mystery, and it's up to God. That's where the judge not lest you be judged thing comes in. It doesn't mean you can't tell people when they're doing something wrong. When someone's doing something wrong, yeah, you need to tell them. That's not judging. Everyone say good morning. Archer says, or possibly just not putting my idea across that well, not exactly crystal clear in my own head. Yeah, well, it's certainly definitely something to be thinking of, and I'm going to take the cop out on that. I leave that to God. I got enough problems in my life. I got to look to myself. Jesus says something similar to some of the apostles after he rises from the dead. When they're like, hey, what about these people? What's going to happen to them? And he says, that's not for you to know. Follow me. End of story. Everyone's saying hello. Yeah. These are all very interesting thoughts. Those are the kind of things that people study in philosophy and theology stuff. Yeah. Oh, boy. So, it is Dad Man walking. He is here. Thank you for being here. He is saying hello. Been lurking at more good Sunday morning. Yes. Hello. Go home. Yes. Well, thank you for being here. Yeah. I went to Mass last night, so I have a nice little sleep in. I had a cup of coffee and did some reading from the Wheel of Time. Yeah, these are all things I think that are great thoughts, and they're things to be thought of. For those of you coming in, hello. Basically, my theme is, first of all, Jesus Christ Superstar is not exactly the bastion of orthodoxy. We're not talking about them taking a sledgehammer to the Pieta. But second of all, the reasons why it's wrong and what's really ultimately wrong about it is we know the intentions behind it is to humiliate, as Adeka said, help make us lose hope. And it does harm you when you see what is sacred to you profaned, which is why they have to keep tricking us, because we're starting to figure it out. Now, in the case of this whole Jesus Christ Superstar thing, you can avoid it. It's not like you're going to be minding your own business watching the Super Bowl and they flash it up, or like what they did at the Olympics. Frankly, I think images we're gonna be seeing from this, images that will be harmful to people, it will not be coming from the left, it'll be coming from those that wanna monetize themselves. I cannot believe how many times I've seen things I do not wanna see by people on X going, "Oh my gosh, look at this." So that's where I'm hoping people will chill down and not share it. Dadman Walking says, "I never liked the idea of the Jesus Christ Superstar musical. I consider it blasphemous without even watching it." Yeah, there were many things that were not so much blasphemous as heretical, silly, though they never presented it. They never pulled a Dan Brown and said, "Yeah, this is actually serious and all that." They were playing off a pop culture kind of thing, and they were playing around with this idea. Now, of course, they were doing it with Jesus, that's an issue, but I can't fault Tim Rice or Andrew Lloyd Webber. They were not attempting to harm. This was done in a very different time. I'll nap later. Oh, yeah. Aside from being, at least in my opinion, lousy music. Oh, well, I think it's good music. It's good. That's just all I can say about it. Andrew Lloyd Webber writes great music. Very few things I can think of that were poorly done by him. I loved his piece he wrote for the coronation. That was the main reason I was watching the coronation. I was like, I want to hear Andrew Lloyd Webber's new piece and make a joyful noise unto the Lord. And if I ever find myself in a situation where I need to do an anthem during Mass, I would probably use it. It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Love Andrew Lloyd Webber. Danman Walking says either way, they weren't doing it with good consideration and saving souls. Way to smirch and tear down, not positive. Well, yes, they're definitely not doing it with consideration, what they're doing right now. They just wanna harm people. Yeah, they don't wanna save souls, yeah. Maybe I'm a little slightly forgiving because, again, it was in the '70s. There was a lot of things going on, but we've grown up, alright? His society has grown up after the '60s and the '70s. You had your little hippie temper tantrum, but definitely what they're doing now. Yes, absolutely. Positively, that's what's going on. So, well, that's what they're doing with, Rings of Power. They know what they're doing. Well, maybe. I think they do. They know they're hurting people, and they don't care. Wheel of Time. Gosh, wow, I have done a very good job of not seeing the Wheel of Time stuff because I don't want those images in my head. Alright. Well, I'm hoping to do maybe more of these. We had a great crowd today. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate everyone stopping in to talk and to share their ideas. I would be nothing without the chat. Oh, wait. Archer says, oops, just popped up. I'll see your Jesus Christ Superstar and raise you the one thing I remember from 2 years of music at school. Way, way back many centuries ago, not long after the Bible began. Yes. Joseph is a good one. It's a straight telling of the story of Joseph, mainly because it was written for children. Yes. The fine example of a family man, Jacob and Sons. Dadman Walking says, oh wait, I already said that. Dadman Walking 55 says, I grew up in the 70s, and even as a kid, I thought they were out to revise and mock Christianity with almost everything they came out with. Maybe it's just me. No, it's not just you. And you have a different perspective being raised there. Then I'm looking at it back from the hindsight of what became of like Jesus Christ Superstar. They definitely were trying, I'll give you this point, to drag down the sacred into the mundane. And we know the harm that that caused. Yes. Archer Collins says, I remember very old Lenny Henry sketch where he talks about his grandma making up words for him when Jesus puts his Renbucks on and runs every race. Yeah. Well, I used to think lots of different words that goes with those, for example, well, I'm thinking more the Pledge of Allegiance. For witches stands, I used to think they were talking about witches stands. Buddy Hepburn says P.A. Yesu from Mercury is probably my favorite piece of Andrew Weber outside of Phantom. Oh, heck yes. The P.A. Yesu, Qui tolli spiccata mundi, donna eis requiem. I've sung that so many times at funerals. Sang it at my grandfather's funeral. Yes, it's a great piece of work. Actually, his whole requiem is awesome. His Hosanna in Excelsis is also very good, very good. I love Andrew Lloyd Webber. He's a great musician. And the music, I think, well, I did break it down a bit, the so mi do and the dominants, the subdominants. That's where a lot of great music comes from. Mozart uses it a lot. And I sometimes wonder, because the folks used to play Jesus Christ Superstar and sing it when I was a kid, that being introduced to that and other classical music helps. Like, the more that you listen to certain intervals and songs, it actually develops musicality and audiation. Tomby is here. Hello. Hail, chat and mods. Thank you for being here. And Archer Collins says, the ironic thing is that the hymn she came up with was actually quite a good sort of modern hymn. Well, you know what? What comes from the heart comes from the heart. Everyone is saying hello to each other. I'm feeling it lurking with the topic. Yeah. And I'm not defending Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm just saying that it was written in a different time than what we're doing today. The subversion was different than what it is today. Today, it is definitely out of the closet and more insidious. Though the making the mundane out of the sacred seeds were planted with things like Jesus Christ Superstar. I guess I'm trying to just point out that if people want to get hugely outraged about Jesus Christ Superstar and having Cynthia Erivo is only one part, and that's problematic. The whole thing is problematic. The home rock opera is. Archer Collins says it actually decontinues. They'll test him for drugs, but he'll be clean because he was trained by God, which actually seems to be a good message. Only half the music I know from reenactment, Latin, and praise. I was old as a kid, even in the 70s. Yeah, well done. And again, I wasn't alive then. Well, I was a baby for half of the 70s. But we know that they were doing that with the mainstream churches, which is why this recent attack over the past 10 years within the Catholic Church against things like Latin is just absurd. It's our treasure. And a bit of hypocrisy, because if you go to the Vatican, what are they singing in Latin? I don't know. It should be an interesting few weeks. Definitely praying. I'm praying for the Holy Father's health and potentially happy death. Maybe he'll recover. If he doesn't, it's going to be a very interesting Lent. I'll never forget or forgive Benedict for ruining Lent, Benedict the 16th back in the day, because he renounced the papacy during Lent. Dadman Walking says, don't get me started on Greece and the messages it was sending. That 70s was an attack on everything established. Yes, it was, wasn't it? And when I say I think most people have grown up in the sense of it was silly, it was ridiculous, but the woke people nowadays haven't realized that society's gone on without them. And maybe we've given them too much power. It is interesting, though, the fact that Musk bought X, how much that was a game changer. Without the censorship, just makes me wonder, how much censorship has there been? The fact that we're able to get information we never knew we could get. And we've been learning about where our money's been going. Holy moly. Archer Khan, talk to me when you're around since the 1300s. Yeah, you know all about Empress Matilda. You mean that Olivia Newton-John was a lot hotter as a high school girl than the bike? Snorter Poopa says, I'm zipping my snoot about the current pope and who might be next. Yeah, it's unseemly. I'm talking about me now, to be thinking like that. That's what's unfortunate about a position where you die is when it ends, because you don't want them to die. It's just a very odd feeling. I remember when John Paul II was nearing the end, how it felt then versus how it feels now. It's very sad. We've got a lot of repairing to do. Maybe we need to look to St. Francis. He said, "Rebuild my church, it is falling into ruins." I can promise you what it will not be like is that ridiculous Conclave movie. Deadman Walking says, Mrs. hated it because the good girl had to turn bad to get the bad boy. Oh, yeah, it was a terrible message. They were all horrible people. 1300s, they used to call those the New Age, says Sort of Poopy Screwber. Yeah, polar bears are really old. Rachel Percy Art says, laugh out loud, the way one side is ticked that we're actually looking to how money is being spent is pretty telling. Darn right. They do not like the light. It was something I said earlier when I was talking about St. Mary Magdalene. There is nothing to be worried about. There is nothing we have to look to. There is nothing to hide. And having nothing to hide is freeing. You only freak out if you got something to hide. And wow, the things that they've been spending money on. Wow. I think that this is one of the biggest things that's happened both in the church and in the secular world in America. This is an earthquake. And I think we're going to come out stronger, but my gosh, you are right, Rachel Percy. You mean federal fraud and waste. Archer Khan says, Empress Matilda possibly our first civil war. Yeah, I would actually agree. I think it is. You see, that's what I'm saying. Someone make a good movie out of that. That would be cool. Or do a proper movie about Henry VII. Not that stupid, the White Queen. The White Princess was sort of okay. I think it's good if you want to get a quick overview of generally what happened, but man, all the stuff with the women and the witches and stuff, it's like, come on, people. Rachel Percyart says, yes, that's exactly what I mean. Snortopoopus, I left friend over saying it's a good thing. Yeah, that's the other thing. The other side is so quick to like abandon you. It's like, well, that's not very tolerant. It's weird. Who's the real judgmental people? Who are the real liberals, if you will? Certainly not what people call liberal. Liberal is a misnamed thing. I believe the correct word is misnomer for this. I need to Google misnomer, so I'm using it correctly. They're not liberal. They're not open-minded. They're closed-minded and judgmental. I mean, they make the 17th century Puritans look like hippies. Sort of Poopin says, how odd. I was listening to an audiobook about Elizabeth of York. Yay! A couple of weeks ago. Among other things, she was the wife of Henry VII. Yes. Well, yes. On the other Elizabeth that was the wife of Edward was it the fourth? I really wish they all weren't called Elizabeth. It's like, give us a break. The closest we're going to get with Empress Matilda is Pillars of the Earth. Oh, maybe I need to look into that. Archer Khan says, there are, I think, aspects of the anarchy in Game of Thrones on top of the War of the Roses. Correct, yeah. And that's what I was saying is if they want to go ahead and do something with the anarchy, my gosh, do it. And say, oh, the real House of the Dragon. House of the Plantagenet. That's that series I did. And I do have stuff ready to go, Archer. I really do. I've got stuff for Henry II. I'm hoping to get that going. So many Elizabeth, a bear is confused. That is correct. Archer, there's a bit in The White Queen where she points out she will either be the wife of Richard III or Henry VII. Yeah, the whole thing about her marrying Richard III, if I'm correct, that's a little bit iffy. If for no other reason, marrying your uncle was really kind of frowned upon. I do understand there might have been one or two situations where dispensations were given with that in Spain, but don't quote me on that. But in general, uncle, that was way too close. Like even cousin was too close and needed a dispensation. But yeah, uncle, ugh. Rather good miniseries, as I recall. Yeah, The White Queen, that was silly. Well, they had it that she actually slept with Richard III. She they had it that she went to the battlefield and ugh, that's just so stupid. Hound 3000, I always wonder why they use the rose emblem as if there are no other flowers. Well, because that was their thing. Well, everyone loves a rose. Look at me. I think the whole roses thing came about later. I can't remember now. Well, no, the roses thing was because the House of York was a white rose and the other one was a red rose. And then when they got married, they put it together and that made the Tudor one and solved everything. Oh, yeah, Rachel Perciart. Philippa Gregory does like to include incest and witchcraft out of nowhere, among other ridiculous things. She tried to pull it out of her buttocks about the witchcraft thing because the mother of the queen in the White Princess, the grandmother of Elizabeth, the one that married Henry VII, was accused of witchcraft, but it was something that everyone's like, oh, come on, whatever. And it's just things that people used to call people to try to get them into trouble. Archer Collins says they didn't really, for example, one side had the boar as their symbol. I think it was referred to as the Cousins' War at the time. Oh, yeah, I remember the Cousins' War. I will bow to you on that one, Archer Collins. I may have been incorrect, but I believe I was correct about the Tudor rose. Also, the War of the Stinkweeds might have been apt, but not pretty. Yeah, that wouldn't have worked. No. Wow, imagine if history had been different and the two boys in the tower hadn't died. What would England look like if the Tudors never came to the throne? Or what would England have been like if Arthur had lived and become the king? I've also seen a video where someone said, what would have happened if the son of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, the one who died after a few months, 2 months, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if he'd have lived and he'd have had his heir, he wouldn't have remarried. Catherine of Aragon would have died as a queen, his only queen. Maybe once she died, he might have remarried, but none of everything that happened. There are too many Henrys and Richards too. I agree. Archer Collins says, I actually kind of enjoyed the White Queen. Haven't seen any of the others. Yeah, they are enjoyable. And I like the fact that you can... Oh, wait, am I confusing the White Queen with the White Princess? I might be. Stupid titles. If I'm correct, the one I really enjoyed more was the one about the War of the Roses and Edward and the kids in the tower and all that. But it's still ridiculous. The way they had Margaret, the mother of Henry VII, acting was also completely wrong. Margaret Beaufort. Some aspects of it were okay, but by the end it was just ridiculous. The History Calling has done a good one on her. What would have happened if I was king, says Snortopupus? Chaos, confusion, anarchy, but a lot of fun. Archer Collins says, you are correct, milady. Both sides had a rose as one of their symbols, which were indeed combined into a rose. Okay, so I was correct on that. But yeah, I do recall it being called the Cousins' War as well. Alrighty. So that's that. I'm going to go ahead and stop because my voice is getting tired and my mother is like, hey, what's going on? So I'm going to go ahead and end. That was the White Queen, the first one. Okay, the White Queen was the first one. The White Princess was the second one. See, they shouldn't even have the same titles. So I've probably confused a lot of things. So, okay, so the White Princess was the one with Henry VII. And oh, yeah, the whole ridiculousness that they had her get pregnant before he married her. Gosh, Philippa Boyens, I do not like her one little bit. Don't get me started on what she did to Catherine of Aragon. The White Queen is Elizabeth Woodville. Thank you. Yes, and the White Princess is Elizabeth of York. I really like the actor for Richard III, but they lost me near the end. Absolutely. Okay, the White Queen is the good one. The White Princess is the mostly ridiculous one. Thank you for clarifying that to me. Take care of you and remember to feed your local polar bear. Absolutely. And thank you for being here, everyone, at Miss Martin Muses. I'm going to be trying to get some videos taken care of. I'm going to record them and edit them maybe tomorrow so that I can have more content for you all. I really do thank you for being here and for your support. I would be nothing without you. I want to encourage you to watch good fiction, good music, good art. You cannot go wrong with the classics. Pull out some Mozart, some Schubert, some Beethoven, some Bach, some medieval chant. You will not go wrong and you will be happier for it. Even some of the great old soundtracks. Get out some John Williams, make your life happy, or read good books, read good fantasy. The challenge is still ongoing. Yes, it is precious. We have until the end of this month for you all to watch the entire Pride and Prejudice. Let me see if I can bring up, I have it pinned on my X account, and here you go for your viewing pleasure. If you have not watched the entire Pride and Prejudice 1995, do so, and I will hopefully be doing a video for it. Bye all. Thank you. Philippa Boyens also wrecked the PJ movies. Oh, Philippa Boyens. Yeah, well, that's a different writer. Did we say Philippa Boyens? Philippa Gregory is the one. I may have made a big mistake there. Yeah, but Philip Boyens, yes, wrecked the PJ movies, and Philippa Gregory ruined everything else. If I was mistaken, mea maxima culpa. I'm sure people will tell me in the chat. So, thank you everyone for being here. Does that include the zombies? No, it has to be the 1995 one. Though, watch the zombies maybe, but the person that they had playing Mr. Darcy was horrible. Here we go, kids. Thank you, Archer Collins. Sort of poop is pooper. We had a Rachel Percy art, Dadman walking, Hound 3000 needs hugs. Give hugs to your doggies. We love dogs here at Miss Martin Muses. I just don't want to own one. We have, who else? Tomby, thank you for stopping by. Buddy Hepburn. We had, I think I got everyone. If I did not, it is not intentional. Of course, Archer Collin coming here knowing his history. Oh, Nordporeal Lifeform, he did stop in and give some support. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're probably going to be doing more Wheel of Time reviews. I'm nearly done with the 4th book. Yeah, this is so funny. Rachel Percy says, I've seen the 1995 so many times. Yeah, it's not really a challenge. So far, the only man I know that has done it has been Stieg, and he watched it for the first time. He didn't know anything about the plot. It was great. But yes, I have it memorized. But have a great day, everyone. Have a great day. And be certain to watch good literature. Don't take bait. And never let your heart be troubled.